All right, welcome. I haven't done one of these in a while. Been busy, been recording also some stuff for my website. So check out my website, gaybautista.com. I have a lot of different stuff, mostly for my job. And as some of you know, I have subdivided a lot of my different interests. Soccer on one side. Also, I'm doing a page for helping out with some people with depression, because I'm sort of sharing my story of my own battles with depression and anxiety and abuse and all kinds of different trauma. But it's good. It's all good. Also, other things about technology and some of my other interests. But we are here today. We're here today to talk about fear. And let me just check to make sure that we are live and that we're good. So we're going to talk about fear because, man, fear is such a thing, isn't it? Fear is insidious. And you know, for me, fear and shame are some of the most powerful emotions. And they're so powerful because they freeze you. They prohibit us from taking action in our lives, taking action in our relationships, taking action in our jobs, taking action in every way. And sometimes the greatest risk. One time somebody asked me, "Well, Gabe, you are asking me to risk, and I don't want to risk this." And I said, well, sometimes the greatest risk of all is not taking a risk. And because time doesn't come back. Money comes back. If people are so worried about getting ripped off sometimes. Well, what if is that a scam, or is this a scam? But people get scammed all the time. People have gotten scammed by fast food restaurants. People have gotten scammed by their educational institutions. People have gotten scammed by their own families. Their lack of education, their lack of maybe love. I hate to go into that sort of dark place, but it is true. It happens. Okay, so the question is, how can we? Why is this important, and why should we even care? And I was gonna erase this. This is actually, I drew this just for my own, but I decided before I delete it, I'm going to share with you guys this before I delete it. So this, in case it's hard to tell, let me see if I can move this tower of books without collapsing. This is the stimulus thought generation memory cycle. Okay? Now, why is this important? Well, this is important because what we think about, how we feel about it, and how we remember we thought and felt about it is really what creates our mindset, what creates what we think of as reality, what we think of as true. Okay? Now, why is this is important? And I have to credit Mr. Stephen Covey for this, and he says something very interesting. He says that our mindset is like a map. And I think this is so cool because he says, let's say you're in Chicago, and while in Chicago, somebody gives you a map and says, look, we're going to be in such and such place, just find it in the map. And so you go, oh, okay, cool, I have a map. So you're going around. Now, little do you know that map is actually the map of Detroit, but through a misprint, it has Chicago at the top, but it's actually Detroit. And so maybe you're going to go and look for the place your friend says, right? And you open the map, and you just cannot find it in this map. You're like, oh my gosh, where is this place? And your friend calls you and says, what's up? Why aren't you here? Just use the map. Well, I can't find it. And so your friend says, well, try harder. All those things that you see on social media, especially among entrepreneurs and working types. Hustle. Well, do it harder, do more, work more, hard. Well, you can work as hard as you want, but hey, I'm lost. I don't know where to go. And then they tell you, well, you got to be positive. You got to think positive. And you're looking at the map, you go, well, I'm positively lost, right? And so all these things of working hard, of having a positive attitude, or being maybe in the right industry, or doing the right things, having discipline, being really being organized. Man, people always say, I have to be more organized and all these things, and they beat themselves up. All these cannot supersede the map, cannot supersede our mindset, cannot supersede what we think of as reality. Now, just because we think it, just because we perceive it, just because we receive stimulus, does not mean that our interpretation of this stimulus through our brain is reality. Okay? Now, this can have many layers, and we can talk endlessly about this. And if you know me personally, you know I can talk endlessly about just about anything. But what I'm really here to say is a couple of things. One, this system is really made for our survival, or primarily for our survival. Now, you may believe in the evolutionary psychology model or not, but it's not necessarily that you think that it is true or that is the truth about the universe. It doesn't have to be. Just think about this. The Newtonian physical models worked, even though they don't explain everything that ever happens in the universe, because some other guy came along whose name is Einstein and changed it all, right? But it doesn't mean that the Newtonian model doesn't explain what it does, because it does explain it, and it helped us a lot, right? And it's still a foundational thing of a foundational understanding of physics. I don't want to go in there. So just follow me for just a little bit. Just entertain me, right? If you find stuff that you don't particularly agree with, sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes that's a very good thing. And you just, I make a habit of having like mental shelves. And in these mental shelves, when I get something, somebody gives something to me, and I'm like, well, I don't agree with this, but I'm going to go ahead and put it on a shelf over here. And you just put it there. And, you don't have to have a position. You don't have to have, a belief, black or white, on every issue. As a matter of fact, nobody can, because there's no time to have that amount of information anyways. So, just relax. That's okay. So here we go. So first, we have stimulus. Stimulus gets sent to the brain. Now, I put little layers here of the brain. Yeah, this is a human brain. Of 1, 2, and 3. So 1 is what we call our reptilian brain. I like to call it croc brain because it's kind of fun. Croc brain. And then we also have our mammalian brain, right? Layer number 2. Now, what's important to note about layer number 1 and number 2 is that they are part of a system, what we call system 1. Really, Daniel Kahneman is the guy to talk, to read, and to hear on this. He's a Nobel Prize winner, precisely in, I think, economics, as a matter of fact. But he's not an economist, which is kind of cool, for these kinds of research, okay? So basically, what you have to understand about these two things is that they are not accessible, right? It says here, inaccessible to our conscious thought. So most of our stimulus and most of everything that thought generation occurs right here, and we have no control over it. It just kind of happens. Just think about it. Like, if you're thinking about, just try to remember something that happened today. You're like for example, if I ask you, what did you have for breakfast today? And then you sit there, and maybe the answer comes to you right away. Or maybe if I ask, what did you have for breakfast last week? Last Sunday. If the answer comes to you right away, great. But sometimes we sit there and wonder. We go, what did I have for breakfast? And then the answer sort of comes out of nowhere, right? It kind of bubbles up, right? Just think about the moment right before you have a thought. What happens then? Nothing much, really. The thoughts just kind of come, right? And a lot of those thoughts are originated from here. And why is that important? Well, it's important because that creates most of our decisions like that on an everyday basis. When we see a person, when we see a situation, maybe on the road as we drive, when we meet somebody new, when we go to a different place we've never been, there are so many things that are happening there that we instantly make decisions. But those instant decisions may not be right. And they start creating a map that is not real, that is not true. Heck, sometimes it could be the map of Detroit and we think it's really Chicago. And now we're lost. You see where I'm going with this? So it's very important to understand that this is happening. Okay? I'm going to give you, maybe let's just talk about one thing. And there are many things later on this. I'm going to talk a lot more about this on my page about sharing my life, my struggles with depression, and sort of my I better myself, I guess, all the frameworks that I sort of came up with and that I learned from other people, and that I sort of invented to try to get my life together because it was not working out. And so there are many different layers to this. I'm going to share one with you today. Okay, just one. There are many actually. If you guys have heard of fight or flight response, those are actually only 2 F's. There's actually 4 F's in that equation. Okay, that's a little tease for you. So if you guys are interested in that, message me and I'll send you the things. That's a sort of a different page. But again, if you've been following my regular videos here on my newsfeed on Facebook, you know that I take philosophy and science and business and marketing and mindset and sales and psychology and everything, and I sort of put them together because I think it's all together. History and math happen at the same time. You can't separate them. We only separate them in school so that we can teach the kids and we can give them tests that they don't really need to take anymore because the answers can be found in Google. But anyways, that's a different conversation. So let's just talk about one thing, and I'm going to go ahead and delete this. Yes, let me take system 1 and 2 out. And so we're going to talk about memory. Okay? Memory. And this is the one thing I want to leave you with today. Memory is about the future, not the past. Okay? That's the one thing I want you to get out of this. Memory is about the future, not the past. Isn't that a provocative statement that I just said? You're probably thinking, well, Gabe, you don't believe in esoteric things like that. Like, what happened? Did you hit your head? Did you fall in the restroom? And not really. Once I explain it to you, you'll know what I'm talking about. Now, what does this have to do with fear? Because all these things are always happening in our mind, and they create memories, right? But why do they create memories? Why do we have these memories? Well, we have these memories not to remember the past. That's not why. But to predict the future. Okay? This is the reason why we have memories. Or a big part of reason. I'm not going to claim that I know exactly. But what's happening here is that a lot of these memories are stored, even, of course, in our subconscious mind. They're not really accessible to you. If you think about, if you ask your mind, okay, when I was 25 years old, what happened? When I was 20, when I was 15, when I was 10. All these answers, maybe a lot of pictures, a lot of things just come up, that bubble up from our mind because they're stored in there. But they're stored in there to help us predict if what we're about to do is a good idea or a bad idea. And this is where fear comes in, okay? Because this guy, the reptilian brain, he's very, 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 very much concerned of our survival, and that's all he cares about. And so the first thing, the reptilian brain is not very smart, as in not very logically, intellectually smart. It is actually very, very capable and does a lot for us, okay? And it makes a lot of decisions. As a matter of fact, the problem with stimulus is that stimulus goes this way through our brain. See, nothing goes to our logic center before it goes through layers 1 and 2. It goes through layers 1 and 2 before it gets sent up to our logic center. So most of the time, the reptilian brain, our croc brain, is thinking, okay, can I eat it? Right? Is it a threat? Is it going to eat me? Right? Can I mate with it? Right? Or not? And if it's none of those things, can I safely ignore it? That's basically what the reptilian brain is thinking about. Why? Because efficiency is primal in survival. Right? If you were in a jungle and you hear a noise, you may not know if it's a lion or just a squirrel. But if it's a squirrel and you thought it was a lion, well, big deal. Your friends make fun of you. You live another day. But if it's a lion and you thought it was a squirrel, right? If you get a false positive, well, no big deal. But if you get a false negative, you're dead. Okay? So in survival, what's most important is how effective, how fast it is. But a lot of times, in our modern society, we're not faced with life and death situations like that. We might just be speaking in front of people and our brain is going, oh my gosh, we're gonna look like fools, and if we're gonna look like fools, then people are gonna make fun of us. If people make fun of us, they're gonna kick us out of the tribe, and if we get kicked out of the tribe, we won't have any food and we won't be able to mate with anybody, and we're gonna die. Okay? Now that's not what is actually happening. Okay? Now this can be triggered because of a memory. Okay? Because of the when-then systems, what we call when-then systems. What are those? When I do this, then this happens, right? When I speak in front of people, then people make fun of me. Okay, maybe it was a memory of long ago, right? When you were a kid and you raised your hand, you said something people thought was funny or stupid. And so you think, your brain starts to make the connection. Again, memory is about the future. When I speak in front of people, then I become rejected. And that's a bad thing. Okay? So, this is one of the frameworks that I want to talk about. And I'll close up real quickly. But I hope it was clear, right? We get stimulus, we get stuff that happens in the outside world and gets in through our senses. It's the only way we take information, right? But it always goes through layers 1, 2, and 3. And layer 1 and 2, let's just say they act as one. They're a little slightly different, but let's just say they act as one. System 1 wants to know really quickly, okay, what does this stimulus mean? Is this something that I need to worry about? And what you need to know about that is that system is fine-tuned for giving, is a little biased towards false positives. Okay? What is false positive? Like a fire alarm. I have a fire alarm right there. And it annoys the heck out of me when I cook, right? And maybe it happens the same way to you. So you're cooking and, you make a little smoke, maybe you're heating up the oil and maybe you're, I'm cutting the food over here and washing it over there. Next thing I know, the smoke lifts up and then boom, that thing starts beeping. I'm just like, oh. So I have to go, wave it out with, usually I have a shirt or something in there, right? And I turn on the fan right next to it so it kind of dissipates, right? Well, it's because the fire alarms are fine-tuned for, if you guys don't know how a fire alarm works, it's kind of cool. It's a little laser that is pointing to a mirror, and so it gets reflected. But when enough smoke particles go between the laser and the mirror, then the fire alarm goes off, right? So it is fine-tuned for giving us false positives because of the result of a false positive. Well, big deal. I knew it was just a little smoke. I just wave it out. But what if there's an actual fire and, there's all this smoke and the alarm won't go off? Then, that could be really bad, okay? So that's the same thing of system 1 here. That it wants to kick in fear. It wants to go. And so why this whole thing is important? Well, we talked about depression and anxiety and being boxed in. Learned the whole idea of learned helplessness. right? You can learn that you sort of can condition yourself into this box that is not really real, but you know, it can happen. You know, there are actually some kind of cruel studies done with dogs, where dogs were shocked back when they could do that, right? They can't do that anymore, but and so they were shocked whenever they try to get over this imaginary lines. Pretty soon the dog knows it can't, and it acts like, you know, it's a wall. It's like, or like it's made of lava or something. You know, it won't go. It has learned helplessness. You can condition it. But in humans, we can act the same, right? But it has this other side, this whole other side to it. In my particular business, or in my particular environment, which has to do with technology and has to do with change. And change, man, change triggers that fear, right? Some people say that fear stands for false evidence appearing real. I tell you, they're wrong. They are wrong. They're dead wrong. Fear is real, okay? And if you've ever felt fear, and I'm sure you have, you know it is true. And all these self-help people always try to tell you, oh, you know, you just have to fight through it and all this stuff. In my page about, all these different frameworks for depression and everything, I will make a very strong case of why you never should do that. Never need to do that. Because you need to meet yourself where you are, right? Isn't it awesome that people that write workout books already fit? People who write books about writing down your goals, they don't write their goals because they read it in a book and thought it was a good idea. I can tell you that. It's something before that. See, I'm not saying that positive thinking is not important. It is essential. I'm not saying that hard work is not important. It is essential. But more essential than that is the right map. If you don't have the right map, if the reality that you think it's true is not true, is warped somehow, then no amount of positive energy, of hard work, of pump up videos and Arnold Schwarzenegger motivational videos that you watch will make any difference in your life. Why? Because I tried it, and lots of people have tried it. And if you ever try to think about something that you've tried to change about yourself that you have not been able to, you know what's happening? And I'll just leave you with this. This is a small tease. There's conflict between this part of your brain and that part of your brain. That's what it is. If you feel resistance, if you feel like part of you wants to do this, but part of you wants to do that, well, what is resistance if it's not a muscle pulling against another muscle or another force, right? Like a weight. When you lift a weight, the gravity's pulling it down, and your muscle is pulling it up. That's resistance. That's what creates an effort, which makes your muscles stronger, but your muscles get tired. So, that's what happens. Well, how come there's no resistance for, I don't know, things like, maybe for some people, like eating, right? It's super easy, right? And people, well, you got to practice, and you got to do this a lot. You got to, I don't know, think positively every day. But tell you, one traumatic event in your life, one time messes you up for the whole life. So, how come you don't have to practice the traumas? It's because of this. And this whole part of your brain that is inaccessible to you and sort of hidden and sort of in there is what controls most of what goes on. It's what controls the map. Okay? So, wrapping up. There are two parts of your mind. There are many. But for this thing, there are two parts of your mind. One, which is inaccessible, your subconscious. You can call it croc brain, survival brain. And then there's your neocortex, your sort of conscious, what you perceive as you. Okay? But everything is you. Really, you'd be surprised to see how little of you really is you. But that's a different talk. So there's two parts, and they're kind of... And this one is primarily concerned with survival. And so it triggers fear. So change, anything technology-wise, anything, all these things are going to continue to happen. And if people don't get on board with these things, with these changes in their life, they will be left behind. They will be left behind. But see, the survival brain doesn't understand that. The survival says, wait, stop. It could be a lion. I don't care. But it's not a lion. And your survival brain is not planning for next week or next month or next year or next 60 years. It's not. And he doesn't care. He just cares about today. He just thinks, oh, as long as we, we get done through today, but you know in your neocortex, in your conscious mind that that's not going to work. You got to plan for further ahead. You got to plan in your business, in your life, in your relationships, in your friendships, and your family, for all these things that can happen, right? So fear is a big part of the reason why people are stuck, right? When a monkey's up there in the tree and the tiger is down below stalking it, the monkey's like, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just sit here, right? And so that's what fear can do. But we're not a monkey in a tree. And if we just freeze and we don't do anything, the consequences can be dire, okay? And memory is about when-then statements, right? When I do this, then that happens. So memory is really about the future, predicting the future, and not about the past. So this is what we have to change, okay? And maybe in some videos I'll explain a little bit some of the ways that you could try to change it, that you could try to do. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I don't claim to be. But these kinds of processes I've had to go through on my own because of my own traumas, my own problems, my own things. So just wanted to share this with you before I erased it. Keep checking out my website. Like I said, I've subdivided all of my sort of interest, soccer and business and all this stuff in different pages. So if you are interested in any of those things and want to follow me and just get videos on that and not all the other crap that I'm into, then make sure you like the page, make sure you follow me. I'll put them below this video and start to find a way to put them all in one spot so people can find them and then go to it. And keep sending your comments, your questions, your suggestions of all the stuff that I do. And I really do appreciate all the nice comments that I get live in person when I go out or when I meet people. It really touches me. A lot of people have been very influenced, which I'm very humbled. I'm not a teacher or a great teacher or anything like that. I just like to share my stuff. So if you got some value, awesome for you, and we'll see you on the next one, okay? Bye-bye.